then I think, Daniel, your report has got it all wrong. 150 is a bigger number than 142. And under Mr. Modi's India is on to bigger things. So but India should be proud that it's 150 and gone up from 142. So I just thought I'll say that as a silly little joke to start with. But it's a matter of great shame that India is where it is. And this largest democracy is a point that Pamela makes. And last night I was at a dinner where we were talking about similar issues, and where I did say that India holds the most complicated elections, but that doesn't make it a democracy. India has newspapers which are published, but that doesn't mean the press is free. India has rule by law and courts, but doesn't mean it's a rule of law. It is a parliament, but it may not have an opposition. If the opposition exists, it is pretty much in name. So it has the structures of what we see as a democratic society, but the functions have been drained away. And I'll end on that a little later. Among the list of people that we've been mentioned, we should also not forget how hard it was for Rana Ayub to leave India recently when she was invited to the Journalism Festival in Italy, and how hard it has been for Akar Patel to leave India again. There's a sophisticated explanation given that Akar is in the situation he is in, not for his writing, but for his role as the chair of Amnesty International in India. And if you believe that, then I have a minaret in Delhi to sell you. Yeah, and I leave it at that. But I think there are a few things also worth bearing in mind. There have been some very good reports by the Free Speech Collective in India, which my friend Geeta Seshu runs, and many of you probably know Geeta very well. And she had her last report. I was just looking at the statistics that 154 journalists have been jailed between 2010 and 20. And in that, and this is a point worth bearing in mind, because it's not only the fault of the BJP government, because out of the 154 names, 73 were in BJP-ruled states, but that does mean that the rest of them, 80-something, were in non-BJP-ruled states. So let's not give a free pass to the other political parties in India, whose record in defending freedoms has also been pretty poor. I completely agree that the tenor and situation in India have changed completely. And I also agree with, and I think Niranjan mentioned the prostitute term and news traders term and so on. And Paranjay, I'm so glad you mentioned Akshay Kumar's famous interview about how to eat a mango, which should be a nice little satirical novel in there somewhere. But I think those things are critical and crucial, but we should not give a free pass to a great extent. It's the BJP is not only misusing and overusing the laws that the British government gave it, but also the laws that have been passed by subsequent post-independent Indian governments. It's making a very efficient use of the tools that the past governments have handed it. And we suddenly realize that, oh gosh, this is where we are. But we have to realize that it's basically a systematic assault that has been going on for a very, very long time. And no political party can be smug about it that they would not do it. I'm sure there's every political party which has had exceptionally nasty relations with the journalists. I want to talk about three threats. We're talking about murders and detention because that's measurable. But what I want to talk about is what cannot be measured, which is the intimidation. When someone does not write a story because his or her editor says, you can't say this because if you say this, we will go bankrupt or whatever. That's one kind of intimidation. A woman reporter is not able to post or state things in social media and withdraws from the social media because of sexual innuendos and threats against her, or morph photographs of her pretending that she is not who she is in a particularly particular video. These are the kind of things that scare people or intimidate people, and I don't blame them. Who wants their public lives to be their private lives to be made public, or even lies about them being made public. And I think that's one of the problems that a lot of journalists do face. Continuous and the amplification. Yesterday there was a report by Professor Manan Ahmed of Columbia University, which is worth looking at it, which basically looks at, there was this conference called Dismantling Global Hindutva in last September in the US. And there was a big backlash against it. And I think the best way to combat that conference was to have another conference on the same day saying protecting global Hindutva, which is fine, which is how democracies ought to function. But instead, there were like amplification of messages, and the way that entire ecosystem functions is really worth looking at it, because they've done a very forensic analysis of how certain journalists are being hounded. So if you're a woman, if you're a Dalit woman writer, if you're a Muslim journalist, the amount of hatred that is spewed, you need an exceptionally thick skin to be able to deal with that and continue to do what you do day after day. The other threat is the non-state actors threat, which partly comes from this online harassment, but also the kind of people who have gone and killed, Kalburgi and Dabolkar and Gauri Lankesh and so on. When you look at these names, I mean, you basically, and Pansari, these are the four that I was going to mention. Basically, these threats have come from non-state actors. I mean, they may be supported, or the state might look the other way when it happens, but the progress of prosecution has been very poor, and that itself has a chilling effect on people and on the media. And that all of that leads to, and then there are the threats of lawsuits. I mean, Paranjo has more lawsuits than he can, remember probably, but literally every newspaper tends to get lawsuit threats from big business and running into billions of dollars, billions of rupees certainly, and in some cases.
Salil, you're wrong. Right now, 4 active, 2 dormant, and several love letters that came from lawyers.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I like receiving love letters, but not from lawyers. Let's leave it that way. Yeah. But anyway, but the point is that but I know so many other journalists who have had. Wire is a classic example. Siddharth was here at the Watson Institute at Brown University, Siddharth Varadarajan, 2 weeks ago, and I spoke with him there. And the pressure that Wire has faced. I mean, Pamela, you're associated with, so you know the story better than I do. But it's pathetic. And someone did ask me to speak about some of the online portals, and I do want to salute what Wire does, what Scroll does, what Khabar Lahariya does, and what Article 14 does. And by that, I don't mean to single out only those 4. I'm sure there are many, many more who are doing it. And even in the mainstream established media, there are some people who are doing really remarkable work. But the very fact that when we are looking at great journalism today, we have to look at these online portals and not the giants of the past like Indian Express and the Hindu and all that. That itself is a commentary on where India has come. And I think that's partly because I think the amplification, which was a point somebody made earlier, that first of all, India doesn't need Doordarshan anymore, the state television network anymore, because Republic, Times Now, and Aaj Tak are doing that incredibly well. So those are the state broadcasters today. And against that, yes, there is NDTV and a couple of others are there who are trying to combat that. But basically, we are in a situation where the TV anchors are very good at holding to account the opposition for the failures of the government. And I mean it seriously, that, the government does something spectacularly wrong. And instead of asking the minister what went wrong, they will ask the opposition leader, why aren't you defending the government when the country is in such a mess? I mean, and and that brings me to this. So the comedians and the online portals are doing a very good job of that. There are judicial orders which are a problem. Killings are, of course, there. Attacks are there. But let's not look only at the statistics which are easy to measure, but let's look at the things which are not easy to measure and impossible to measure. And that's when we get an even worse. And probably then, India's score might rise to 180, Daniel. I mean, it might even reach there. But finally, I want to end by reminding us what L.K. Advani had said to the media when the emergency was lifted. He said, you were asked to bend, but you crawled. And today we are in a situation where the media is asked to jump and they say, yes, sir, how high? Thank you.